You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. I'm Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal. Welcome to the show. Hey, sis.
Here we are. I'm running the board again today.
I love it. I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, my day's been on an 11, so I came squealing in here about 2 minutes ago. So I'm glad you were here ready to go.
Well, I love it.
Oh, yes. My body is buzzing.
Yeah.
I have had a really stressful day, and it got me to thinking about why I started doing what we're doing and why I care so much about soil health. And it feels like all of the places where the wheels fall off, if we start peeling back the layers of that onion, it comes back to health.
Yeah.
And what we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah.
And how we're interfacing with nature. I mean, I remember when we were little kids, growing up in a farming community, you'd see folks with dirt under their fingernails all the time. And you're like, ew, that's so gross. And now I value my day if I'm ending it and I have dirt under my fingernails.
Yeah. Yes.
So anyway, I went down a wormhole today on fabric, on synthetic fabrics versus hemp and cotton and natural fabrics. I went down a wormhole on chemicals in our sunscreen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole on food-like substances.
That's a lot of rabbit holes, sis.
Yeah, it is.
You want to take a deep breath over that?
Yeah, because that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because a lot of it has to do with frequency. And as you love to tell us, we are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe.
That is right.
Yeah. So, which rabbit hole would you like me to start on? Fabric, the food-like substances, the chemicals in our sunscreen?
Well, what feels most relevant for you?
I'll just start at the top, I guess. I remember just a couple of days ago, I told you, I'm looking for hemp underwear. Everything I'm reading about synthetic fabrics.
Forever chemicals.
Yes. And where we sweat and we have these synthetic fabrics or these toxic dyes and, the pesticides that get sprayed all over the cottons, even if we think we're doing good and wearing a cotton shirt or something, there's still so much in the clothing that we put on our backs. And, it just releases hazardous nanoparticles into our bodies, out into the atmosphere, and just a lot of how we feel in the day. If you start thinking about, okay, well, I ate bad food, I have on trash clothing, and I just think it kind of is a pile on of where we are and how we feel. And, that I was just at that opening of the High Plains Hemp Gin, and knowing that in order for us to shift our clothing industry in this country, we have to have people growing hemp.
Yeah.
And so it's not just as easy as let's wear silk, wear hemp, linen, or anything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not that easy, because as I went down the wormhole of looking for hemp underwear, it sent me to Australia.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have to go down under to get some undies.
Down undies.
That's right. So anyone interested in town, let's just order them together, save a lot of shipping.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was just chatting with Max about the way that we are poisoned through what we drink, what we breathe, what we eat, what we touch. And that is the reason that we're doing this show. So I love it that this is a conversation we're having, because just 3 minutes ago, I was talking to him in the other room about the very same thing.
Well, that makes sense. And of course, my best friends are all going nuts because I keep sending them all of these forever chemical videos about I've seen this in your refrigerator. I know my littles are drinking this, like throw it away. And then they replace it. And I'm like, that has forever chemicals too. Throw it away.
I know. Bless us, everyone. It is definitely something we have to be thinking about all the time.
And whenever we talk about frequency of fabrics, and I don't know if it's something that you can articulate, but one of the things that I had read was that the frequency of hemp is 100, and that mirrors the frequency of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we are looking for ways to be in tune with nature, it makes sense that something that comes from nature would be more in vibrational alignment with our bodies than something that was made as a byproduct of the oil and gas industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And probably because I was looking up all of this stuff, I got served up an ad on Instagram that was showing the sturdiness of hemp fabric versus cotton.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was some dude in a gym and has a cotton t-shirt, and he just like shreds it apart with two hands, and then is trying to do that with the hemp shirt, and it won't tear.
Mm-hmm.
So then he wraps it around a bunch of weights and starts to pull the cotton shirt, and it rips to shreds. And then he does the same thing with the hemp t-shirt and drags this boatload of weights across the gym.
Excellent.
Throwing these two t-shirts in a swimming pool, and they're floating for a while. And then the cotton one absorbs all the water and goes under, and the hemp shirt's still floating on the top.
Yeah.
So, there's practical pieces to it that when we see it, we're like, oh,
yeah,
that's some sturdy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were like, well, hemp is in vibrational alignment with your body. Like, what are you talking about, weirdo?
Yes. And I'm enjoying my new Panda Biotech hemp bag that you brought me from the ribbon cutting. Thank you so much.
See, I'm a good sister.
You are. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So synthetic fabrics, bad for our bodies. Look in your closet. I think our friend Kat was saying she was thrifting the other day and found something fabulous that she wanted, and then looked at the tag, and it said, this is toxic.
The ink that was printed on it was cadmium and lead. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if we're not paying attention, that's fast fashion.
Mm-hmm.
That's crap. And then, of course, I'm powder. So I'm thinking about sunscreen now, although it is a beautiful, muggy, rainy day in Lockhart.
Rainy day. Fantastic. And Dion and I were just shopping for some linen sheets earlier today. So we're on the same wavelength.
Well, good. If you find any good ones, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just get exhausted searching for this stuff. And then, the stuff that I typically find that is hemp based will come out of Australia or country by Spain, Portugal.
Okay.
Yes. So those are the two places that I find stuff.
Well, I am so excited to get this hemp industry going here in Texas so that we can have products that are grown and made here in Texas.
Yeah. So the next rabbit hole I went down was the sunscreen one, because, after a while, it's like, okay, sunscreen from 2 years ago, I need to throw this away and get something else. But there's so many chemicals in our sunscreen.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at natural alternatives, I found one that was beef tallow based.
All right.
And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm already putting on my skin.
Mm-hmm.
When my sister makes my beef tallow lotion that I'm out of.
I know. I need to get some more tallow.
Yes. Look at my skin. So anyway, I wanted to throw this out there for you because maybe you can make me some sunscreen.
That's on the books.
It is beef tallow and then adding zinc oxide to it. So some mineral-based UV filter.
I have zinc oxide.
Perfect. Yep. Well, I cannot wait to get my face cream and my sunscreen.
Okay.
Tick-tock.
Gotcha.
Yes. But the thing about these sunscreens is they disrupt our hormones. They damage our microbiome. They cause cancer. And we are told that we need it on all the time.
Yeah.
Granted, I believe from my own personal homework that me getting sun in the mornings, anytime before around 1 o'clock in the afternoon is great. It's just like this short little window that my powdery self needs to shade. But anyway, so if you are even remotely curious or, conscious, we need to, pay attention to what we're putting on our skin.
Always. Well, and that's just a continuation of the chemicals. That's why we're trying to do what we're doing, is just get those out of society as much as possible. Like, really pay for your own waste instead of repurposing that to make a lot of money to then have other people have to deal with the consequences of using those chemicals.
Yeah, the common thread through every single one of these things is chemicals.
Yeah.
In the clothing industry, in this skincare industry. I mean, technically, we shouldn't put anything on our skin that we wouldn't eat.
Exactly. If you can't pronounce it.
Well, I mean, people eat things they can't pronounce all the time, but I don't know they should. Speaking of food-like substances.
Exactly.
I don't know what it is, but I have been getting served up a lot of videos of people looking at fake food under a microscope.
Oh, no.
Have you seen these?
I saw something the other day that really disturbed me. So
oh my
I don't know which one you're talking about.
Well, okay. So the one I saw today was a Cheeto.
Oh, no. Ooh.
Where they just looked at I don't know if it was a flaming hot Cheeto or what kind of Cheeto it was. I think they probably all are in the same family, but they broke it open and they're just looking at these weird crystalline structures. And then you just see these tiny little microscopic bugs moving around in it.
Oh, no.
And I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm just like, this isn't even real food, but something's living in there.
Wow.
And then the other one was a McDonald's.
Oh, that's what I saw. Yikes.
Yikesies is right. I mean, I'm just like, I cannot.
Wow. Because people just inhale those things without a second thought.
Well, people are starting to wake up and pay attention because they're getting out their trusty microscopes and checking their food out.
I know. And I have a microscope. So we'll.
Well, I hope you don't have any of these food-like substances in your house.
I don't. You know I don't.
I don't even want to pay for them to do the experiment.
Yeah.
I believe it. I'm not seeing it through the microscope with my own eyes, but I absolutely believe that. And I feel like we were children of that generation, born in 76, kids of the 80s. Our parents were partying like rock stars and serving us TV dinners and pot pies. And, it's just like, sure, this new thing called the microwave's out. It's going to be your babysitter. So our generation is very used to eating processed, fast food.
Yeah.
And I think really it's probably when people become parents and, and they start waking up to some of that stuff and paying closer attention till their kids get to be tweens and teens. And then they're just like, eat
whatever you want, man.
I think I went down the food wormhole when I got my genetic testing done to just see exactly what was right for my own body and to not allow myself to buy into whatever fad diet or exercise or whatever was happening. I'm like, I need my own roadmap.
Yeah.
And knowing how once I shifted the way I ate, how I saw all these other things start changing in my life.
Absolutely. I've been making my own stuff for a very long time. And Dion and I have been going organic for 20 odd years. But then once she was diagnosed with cancer, I mean, we had already been researching a lot of stuff because her dad had cancer for our whole relationship. And so we were really focused on health and how to create that in the body. And so when Dion was diagnosed with cancer and we went through that, we really cut a lot of stuff out and just added a lot of wonderful and healthy things and habits. And it really is, once you just start, and even if you just make little changes, it just gets easier and easier. And you feel how much better you feel and you want to do more. So
when you were talking earlier and you said you started making stuff, what kind of stuff were you and Dion making?
Well, I have been making my own face lotion, oil, stuff like that for over 20 years. And I'm a DIYer. If I see that I want something, and then I see what's in it. I'm like, okay, these are the main components. This is what I want. I'll make it myself. That and bath salts and cleaning products. I use baking soda and vinegar, and we'll use our orange peels or lemon peels and put them in vinegar and clean with that. So just, that kind of stuff.
Yes. And that reminds me of when I was talking about, in this new space I'm in where we have really hard water, and I was getting a lot of like gyp buildup in the sink. And you said, go buy that lemon juice at the store that's like on the shelf. That stuff will eat anything out of your sink.
Don't put it in your drink.
Yeah. That works like a charm. I was using it this morning.
It's great. It takes all the crust out of stuff.
Yeah, but don't put it in my margarita.
No.
So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is urban sprawl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So again, when I was thinking about all these reasons why I care about soil health and why we're doing what we're doing. And of course, to just back up a little bit, the reason I was having all of these thoughts is because I am completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Everything that I'm working on right now, it feels so important.
I know. I love you so much.
And I don't know what to take off my plate.
I know. Breathe.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we figure out how to take off our plate. We take breaths, we relax, we soften. And then really it bubbles to the top. Like, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. And often also we can recognize like, this feels like the easiest thing to do. And we're going to move through that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can do that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You're great at that. We're doing it.
Before I dive into that whole diatribe on the urban sprawl and what we need to do to protect Lockhart, I had pulled up an interesting thing about fabric and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to, as an evangelist for hemp, just to drive this home a little bit beforehand to just tell you why I think these hemp fabrics, they are thebomb.com.
All right.
And of course, I have some hemp fabric clothing. I use the hemp bags and whatnot. And like that athlete showed me today on the Instagram, they're extremely durable. Like if you buy a hemp shirt, that thing can last forever. And it's naturally hypoallergenic and it has antibacterial properties. So for somebody like me that has sensy skin, it's great. For somebody that sweats a lot, and they get stinky shirts, like hemp is great for people like that.
Yeah.
And then of course it's sustainable and eco-friendly. We know that when you're doing it right, you have all the elements together, you can have a hemp crop in as little as 90 days.
Yep.
It requires minimal water, again, if you have all the conditions right. And it can thrive without pesticides, which is one of the big things about the cotton industry is that there's so much pesticides that is put on cotton. And in fact, they use formaldehyde.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So this stuff, that we just want as little of that stuff on our skin. And I really noticed the difference for me was when we were having to wear masks when I was living in California and I couldn't go into anywhere without putting that silly thing on my face. That was when my skin really shifted and got super sensitive.
Yeah.
And, there's so many chemicals on those disgusting.
Well, and
masks.
You're literally breathing in your exhaust. Like, go put a banana in your tailpipe and tell me how long your car runs. That's the same darn thing. Come on, folks.
This is a true story.
Let me say one thing about overwhelm. Like we said earlier, you are being bombarded through the air, through our water, through other things that we're drinking, what we're eating, things we're wearing, what we're interacting with. We are being attacked. Like our body is having to fend off all of these chemicals and all this stuff. It's poisonous. It's a lot of chemicals. And so it's no wonder that you feel overwhelmed. I mean, we do. We get exhausted. There's brain fog or there's soreness or exhaustion or congestion or, just like a million things that happen. And so just recognize that you are making it in a world. We're swimming in a sea of petrochemicals. So
I'm going to start working naked. Good thing I work from home in the country. So speaking of the country, we'd like to keep it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we would.
So I read a stat today that between 2001 and 2016, 11 million acres of farm and ranch land were converted into urban and highly developed land or low density residential areas. So to put that in perspective, that 11 million acres of loss is equivalent to all of the U.S. farmland that is used for fruit, nut, and vegetable production.
Whoa.
Yeah. That stat was a 15-year period to 2016.
Yeah.
And so that equates to 2,000 acres per day being paved over, built on, and transformed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next stat was that there's been another 7% decline since 2017 till now. And when we live in such a beautiful space and a sweet little town like Lockhart, and we want to preserve that.
Yeah.
And I don't care which direction you drive out of town, pretty soon you're going to see farmland for sale.
Yeah.
You see the signs. And so, the average age of the farmer in the United States is 58 years old. And so it's like, okay, well, why is this happening? Why are these families and these farmers giving up this land to have it turned into residential and shopping centers and, whatever else, gas stations, corner stores. Yeah. And the reality is that existing farmers, they can't keep their land in production and make money.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what our family was dealing with and why, we are 10,000 acres smaller than we were a few years ago.
Yeah.
That is something that really makes us consider the importance of regenerative agriculture and the people that are focusing and doing these studies right now, like the team that did that Roots So Deep documentary.
Yes.
And how they are side by side showing the people that are using regenerative methods versus the conventional and showing the difference in their lives, their stress levels, their financial situations, the health of their land, the health of their animals, the health of the soil, the bird population, the bug population. All of these things are being evaluated.
Right.
And when these older farmers are seeing a farm that is just on the other side of the fence is theirs, and they see the quality of life of their neighbors being higher than their own, they see them being less stressed or whatever, they're getting curious and they're looking into this. But in my opinion, this is the only way that we save our farm and ranch land is to wake up farmers and ranchers to the hole they've dug themselves in by following that big ag model.
Well, and understanding that it doesn't have to cost as much money, because that's really in that great documentary. I really enjoyed it. It is like helping the conventional farmers was saying it is so much cheaper. You don't have to grow hay. You can have the native grassland and feed your cattle really high quality, nutrient dense forage and grasses that are going to make them healthy and put on more weight and bring you more money at the sale. So you can carry more cattle on that amount of land without spending the money to grow the hay, to bale the hay, to move the hay. And then you're feeding your cows all year long without having the expense of making hay.
And your cows are feeding your soil.
Yes. And then you can have more cows that you can sell at the sale and make more money. So it really is, it's a no-brainer. And that has been so exciting to just begin to kind of tease apart all these ideas that we have had about how things have to be because people tell you that's the way it is. And as we are learning personally through our own experience, a lot of people who tell you that things have to be that way are wrong. We did it like they said, and it didn't work out. And that's okay. I'm not mad about that. But I also am like, okay, I have other ideas and we're going to do it like that next time. So just being able to change your mind, to be open, to do something different, be open to things being different than what you think they might need to be.
And the other glaring thing that I saw in that documentary is that no one was willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
They were just doing it and continuing to do it. And they would notice from the highway that their neighbor's property looked different, but they weren't asking why. They weren't talking to them about it. And it's starting that dialogue. It's creating that community of farmers where you are asking for help. You're seeing what's working for someone else, or you know what's working for you. Go scream that from the rooftops.
Yeah.
I want to know what's working for you.
Yes.
You know, the other 2 hemp producers in this county, I want to know them so bad. I want to know what their experience is.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, let's just talk about when they were taking that thermometer and putting it on the soil, and it's like, okay, it's overcast kind of morning. The soil was like 74 degrees. Sun comes out. It's a little bit later. They measure the temperature of the soil where there's ground cover, still 74 degrees. 5 feet over where there's not ground cover, the ground was almost 100 degrees.
Exactly.
And it's like you're baking your soil biology.
Yep.
So anyway, this is the problem that farmers have now to keep their land. Regenerative agriculture is, to me, the low-hanging fruit solution for us to keep active farm and ranch land. And then the other piece that's causing this is that new farmers can't compete with land prices to get going in the business.
Yeah.
Which is, again, something that one family, it's father, son, the Keeners, they were the ones that were doing the amp grazing, but they were leasing their land.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And and they would get a piece of property dialed in and going, and then it would get yanked out from under them. So this family was on their 3rd farm or ranch and starting over.
Leasing.
And it's, it's just so risky for farmers to create this long game method.
Yeah. And
then know that they don't know how long they're going to get to keep that land. I believe they said that the land that they were on now was a handshake deal.
That was the one that they...
Oh, the one that they had lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to be told that was worth its weight in gold.
Oh, yeah. It used to be.
Gotta have a good handshake to be a farmer, that's for sure. Anyway, those are some of the things that have been weighing on my mind.
Yes.
But, you know, I think here in Lockhart, there's so many opportunities to do really cool things, integrating agriculture into the community.
Yeah.
And we're so fortunate to have our farm license on a piece of property that's inside the city limits.
Yes.
That is considered agricultural property. That's rare anymore to even have it. So I'm excited to think about some of the rural development stuff that we can do here in town to just keep it small, keep farming at the center of what this town's doing, and educate the community on how to support farmers and then how to do that on their own.
Yeah.
I would love everybody to be growing their own food.
Yes. That's the dream. That's where we're headed. Victory gardens. That was a thing, like help feed the community. And we can get back to that. We can do that. And that is my whole counties across America idea about having counties figure out what do we need to feed our population, and then actively participating with the farmers and the ranchers and whoever it is that's growing our food in whatever way that they are, whether they're producing animals or vegetables or, you know, wheat or cotton or whatever, and just really dialing in what it is that we need and then creating that for ourselves so that we don't have to worry about the big industries and like, oh, all this farmland is going away. And they're telling us, oh, we're food insecure and you can't do that with organic farming. But yet we're going to sell 1 million acres of farmland and grow houses on it. Like, does that make sense? Are we going to eat less food? More people eating less food? That's not the way it works. So I'm excited. There's a lot of opportunity here.
There is a lot of opportunity, but I mean, I feel like every time, the starting gun starts and we think we're about to run a 100-yard dash, people drag hurdles onto the darn track. And, like the Conservation Innovation Grant.
Oh, yeah.
I finally find out that it's open and I'm so excited. And the darn thing's due on July 1st.
Yeah.
And it's like we have 2 weeks to do about 3 months worth of work.
Yeah.
And, I was very frustrated about this.
Yes.
And so when we're told, there's $3 billion available for the agricultural community and people aren't asking, people aren't coming to the table for the money. It's like, or are we? And you're giving us slippery deadlines and we can't meet them.
Well, farmers are in the field.
We're going to do our best, give it a college try, and get this thing done. But I want to write a strongly worded email to somebody at the USDA.
Well, we can talk more about that after this underwriting.
So this Conservation Innovation Grant, our concept, our idea is to create a blueprint for growing hemp in the state of Texas based on different latitudes, soil types, using biological inputs. I mean, this is important stuff. Yeah. And everyone I know that is curious about growing hemp needs this. So for me, I have been trying to reconcile what we can accomplish and how we can do this. And when we were reading the fine print, that, by the way, if you read every page of that document, would take you about 3 days to digest it.
Yes.
And I mean, just you applying for the password or the username to even be able to apply, that took over 24 hours. Yeah. So I'm already frustrated with the whole thing, but.
This is why it was more fun to farm in the 80s.
Heck yeah.
This is a lot of paperwork. And I just wonder if all the people that get money from our government have to go through this much paperwork.
Or how much of that money either gets yanked back or asked back because they didn't dot all the I's and cross all of the T's. I mean, we have to come up with, for a $300,000 annual payout for this grant, we learned yesterday that we have to come to the table with $150,000.
Yeah.
So now on top of all of that, just putting our plan on paper, now I have to raise $150,000 in 2 weeks. Like, okay, sure. This is easy. Great.
You know what, though? We're getting started. We're in there. We're signed up. Everything is in. And now we just start building our program. And it's going to come together. We have Kat, fortunately, her help and her support, and Dion. And, we're going to do it. I felt so good sitting in there talking about this yesterday during our meeting. And I was just looking around at you girls and listening to the smart things you were saying and just how powerful this is that we're coming together right now and working on this together. And I love it. And it's okay. It's okay. Like, really, hero's journey. It doesn't come without a struggle. This is what makes it interesting. It'll be all right.
And if there is a Daddy Warbucks out there, you just give little JoJo a call. Oh my gosh. But one of the things that I'm really excited about doing with this grant, this one or another one that we get, is using that systems level science methodology that those guys were using in that documentary.
Yes.
The Roots So Deep documentary. I mean,
oh yeah,
just nerding out.
I love it. That little pie chart.
So good. Well, and also by watching that and seeing the differences in conventional versus regenerative, bugs aren't bad. Like, the diversity of bugs is what makes it work.
Yeah, because he was pulling in bags of grasshoppers. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, excellent. I like to hear that.
Yeah. The way that this typical model has been taught is like, okay, all these bugs are bad and, they need to go away. Grasshoppers are terrible. These different weeds are bad. And it's just like all of the diversity is really what makes the ecosystem thrive.
Yeah. Well, that whole good and bad, like that is an outdated concept because there are, and just for one example that I learned in farming this week, I've got a cucumber that is growing so big and it's so beautiful. I've got 2 cucumbers I'm taking home for the family reunion. And I noticed I'm getting some bugs on there, and I'll think of what they're called in a second. Aphids. So there's parts of it, and I was like, oh, it was so beautiful. And it's inside, deep inside. So I'd gone and I got a bucket of soapy water, which is how you kill bugs on your plants. You just pull them off and drop them in that soapy water. And that is that. You don't have to poison anything. And it's very helpful. So I was taking and I was trimming off these little leaves and looking, and there are ladybug larvae all over the place.
Nice.
And so I was just like sitting there, and I can't dump that because it's got a ladybug on it. And they were everywhere. And I'm like, okay, so here I am sitting here frustrated because I've got aphids, but what I'm doing is farming ladybugs. I have 1,000 ladybugs on that plant. And so it's just like, okay, I'll take the bad with the good because the good is so much better than that little bit of bad. And it's still growing me cucumbers,
And do the ladybugs eat the aphids?
Yes. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super exciting.
Now, I know you had someone in the community reach out to you about insect questions. Do you have that?
Well, Austin was asking me about pill bugs. And pill bugs, they're good and bad. Again, here we are with good and bad. Because they're good because they take in heavy metals. They're held in their exoskeleton. So this is part of what biology does in our soil, is that it holds on to the carbon. A fungi can, in their walls, in the little walls of their bodies, hold carbon for 300 years.
Wow.
And you know how how that breaks up? When you plow it. And then you just release it into the atmosphere. So that's part of the reason that we don't want to plow, is because so many things are holding that carbon in the soil. And so just like that, these little pill bugs hold on to heavy metals and different stuff like that in the soil. So they can take them up and then they hold on to them. But they do also eat your stuff. They eat dead plant matter, but if there's not enough dead plant matter around, they will eat your plants. So that can be a total pain. I like to use diatomaceous earth, which is the ground up exoskeleton of mollusks. And that is really great. Actually, we put it in our coffee every morning because it is silica, and it's something that is really good for our body and that we don't get enough of.
And if we don't have enough silica in our bodies, we cannot absorb the other minerals that we're taking in.
Exactly.
So I have my morning tonic with my silica in it as well.
Probably the 4th or 5th addition to my coffee in the morning.
Well, I do the lemon water, cayenne, honey, a scoop of the collagen, and a scoop of the diatomaceous earth. And it's pretty gritty when you get to the bottom of it. But
I love it.
Yeah, suck it all down.
Because I know it's good for me.
Yes.
So
before coffee. So now I've gotten pretty good. Now I can go 2 hours before I have my first cup of coffee in the mornings.
We have our coffee go off before we get out of bed. So I smell it and I walk straight over and I make it. And I know that I should do my lemon water before coffee, but I'm not there yet.
Well, see, I do a French press. It requires more effort. So
one of these days. Yes. And so just another, some more beneficial insects that you're going to see in your yard. And I've printed off this little sheet from Grow Green. It's the Earthwide's Guide to Beneficial Insects. And when Joanna sends out our next newsletter, I'll have her put this in there if you want to look at it.
Right on.
But there's assassin bugs and damsel bugs and damsel flies, which kind of look like a dragonfly, but their wings are together. Dragonflies are an apex predator in your garden. Like if you have dragonflies, that is a wonderful thing. That is something that you want to see. So that is super fun. Praying mantis is really great. Little green lacewings. When you see those little, it's like a line of little stalks with a little ball on the end of it, maybe on the back of the leaves or something. Those are little lacewing eggs. So that's one way to notice those, and those are great. Beetles, ladybugs, predatory flies, wasps, spiders, all of these things are so good for our garden. So a lot of times we have a big wasp nest over our front door. I don't kill wasps. And so I'm like, oh, Lord, I hope nobody notices that.
None of your friends try to take it down for you.
Scream. But so good. There's so many insects that are just beneficial. For every one bad insect, there's a ton of good insects. So rather than trying to kill all of them by blanket spraying something or putting it on there, if you can just, which this is like pulling weeds, instead of spraying a chemical on your yard, get out there and meditate and pull weeds. It's really a wonderful, calming, grounding, relaxing. And also, I always, when I'm pulling out like a deep root, one that has a tap root, I just imagine like these deep rooted thoughts or memories or ideas that I've picked up a long time ago that don't really fit anymore. And I just imagine myself pulling that out by the root. And then there's some that grow across the ground so that you can gather them all together and then just pull one small root out. And it feels so much like our thoughts and how jagged they can be and moving out across in ways that aren't helpful and picking up other ideas that don't really, they're not what we want. It's not in alignment with our highest self. So
and cleaning that up is so satisfying.
It's so satisfying. And then it's just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I picked this whole thing up and pulled it out. And now I have this space that I'm looking at that's,
a canvas that you can do something else with.
And also when you're doing that, you're putting air in there. You're making pockets of air in your soil for water to flow and water to be held and for more microbiology to hang out in there. So there's so many good things about that.
Well, I dig it. If you have a digital copy of that, I can post all those pictures too.
Oh yeah, I can do that. I'll send it to you.
So, agriculture is a huge part of the solution for anything that we're struggling with, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of like whenever I was telling you that I was very angry about this grant. Mm-hmm. And then I saw that you'd posted something about like, okay, anger's where you start and then peel that back and like, where's the emotion? What is the other emotion? Like anger's just that blanket one on top.
It's easy.
You got to get curious to then, identify it deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a lot of what happens with farmers. Like, was it Wallace or the older man on that?
Prentice.
Where after he got the results back from their testing, this is an 80-something-year-old man, and he's just sitting there with his wife looking at the camera saying, well, basically everything I've been doing is wrong.
It broke my heart.
It broke my heart.
God, it hurts my stomach now.
and then, the host, the narrator just saying, well, let's not look at it that way.
Okay.
Like, you don't know what you don't know. When we learn and we can shift and change. Yeah. But I think that is the big perspective shift that we have to focus on when talking to and rallying farmers to move into this space. Because just like that one guy, he's like, okay, what would it take for you to bring your cattle over here and graze this guy's land? He's like, give me the land, let me do my thing, and leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Farmers want to be left alone to do their thing. They don't want you to tell them how to do it better, how to do it different.
Yeah.
And so whenever I was listening to him say that, I'm like, okay, this is the emotion that if we can't help them and soften around it and come up with a better perspective, then they won't change.
Yeah. Man, and that is why I'm super excited about helping them understand it can be easier. It can be less expensive, less effort and backbreaking to, do the work up front. And then it's less effort to keep it up, and it's less money with all the inputs. So it really is. It doesn't have to be as difficult as it has become. So I'm excited. I'm really excited because that rootsodeep.org, that was great. People are doing it. They are doing this work, and I really cried through all 4 episodes because of course I did. They're doing it, sister. Other people care about this.
Yeah. And I mean, these are people from all walks of life. It was Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. Yep. And I loved hearing all those accents.
Oh my gosh. I didn't feel quite so bad about mine. Well, because I loved it. I can listen to them and my heart is bursting. And especially seeing Wallace get excited, and he wants to. So there are a lot of people who are excited to do things differently and who recognize that the way things are done right now aren't exactly working, not well, and not for the people that they should be working for.
Wallace, he's the one that loves hunting quail.
Yes.
You know what was so interesting about that too was the fact that the conventional farmers, they all love bird hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they didn't have birds on their property anymore. Mm-hmm. And a catalyst for so many of them was the fact that there were bobwhite quail on their neighbor's property just a few miles up the road from them.
He said, I'm mad about that.
Yeah.
He wants quail. Yes.
Well, and I love it because that inspired Dion to do, y'all are both bird watchers anyway.
Yes. We are.
Tell me you're old without...
I know, without telling me you're old. Let me just list off the birds that are in my backyard. Seriously, we're in town, about a mile from the square, and it's 0.33 acres. And in our backyard, on a regular and daily basis, we see jaybirds, turkey vultures, sparrows, cardinals, house finches, wrens, mockingbirds, purple martins, caracara, scissortails, chickadees, hummingbirds, woodpeckers, 2 different kinds, doves, Eurasian and mourning dove, cedar waxwings, red-winged blackbirds, starlings, black-bellied whistling ducks, grackles, and red-tailed hawks. Are you kidding me? Is that so exciting?
That is so exciting, and I don't know what half of those look like.
Well, I'm telling you, I love it because I have one of our gals at Zumba is sad because she doesn't have any birds in her backyard. And I was just like, what? You don't have any birds in your backyard? And so anyway, I'm going to talk to her about how we can get some birds in her backyard. But.
Yeah. Well, and that one woman on this documentary, when they found 0 birds on her ranch, that's insane. I mean,
and that upset her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what impacted her to change.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I will say, sister, that I feel way better now than I did when I came squealing in here an hour ago. So thank you.
Well, you are welcome. I'm so happy to have this time with you and to share this information with our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.